and suffering. It is crucial that you use this gathering today to focus on how to ensure that the British government does not continue to act as the primary sales arm of BAE Systems. And once the dirty deals have been done and there is the prospect of court action against them, it is the government, as we saw in the Al Yamamah deal, that acts as their primary protector. It is the government of this country that acts as defender, as one of the most corrupt arms companies operating in the world today. It is down to you and to us to try and ensure that justice is done. Thank you very much.
So you mentioned the corruption, financial corruption in the political sphere in South Africa, and you mentioned the bribery and involvement of BAE in that process. Does it defy credibility to think that there's similar corruption in the political class in this country in these kind of deals? Are they immune and acting in a purely disinterested way when they facilitate BAE's contracts? Do you think?
It's a very important question. Having written my first book about the impact of the corruption on those who are corrupted, I have now turned my attention to those who do the corrupting. And I suppose the point is that while corruption in South Africa and in many other countries of the South, what some people describe as emerging economies or developing countries, the corruption is fairly unsophisticated in that it's not difficult to identify it, to expose it. That often has little impact, but it is still possible to do it. Corruption in what I ironically described as the developed countries, I think, is of a far higher order, both in quantitative terms, but also in its sophistication, so that we don't automatically see it. So one of the things I'm trying to do with the second book, and I'm working on at the moment, is trying to establish the way in which the corruption in the UK, in the US, takes place. In the United Kingdom, again, I think that it is more subtle than that. The nature of the relationship between the British state and its arms companies, particularly BAE Systems, is such that that company, I believe, stands above the law in this country. The way in which the High Court reversed the decision to close down the Al Yamamah investigation and insisted that the SFO think again, the way in which that decision was then itself dismissed by the law laws, to me showed the extent of what I will describe, for want of a more inventive phrase, of the establishment's protection of BAE Systems. This was the most corrupt arms transaction in history. One individual had been paid over £1 billion in bribes, some of which went not through the shadowy companies in the British Virgin Islands or Luxembourg and Liechtenstein financial institutions. Some of the money that went to Prince Bandar went through the Bank of England into Riggs Bank, which was the banker of choice for most American presidents, for almost all ambassadors to Washington, D.C., and whose headquarters were located a few hundred yards from the White House. The client manager at Riggs Bank, who looked after the affairs of Prince Bandar, was a cousin of George W. Bush. Now, Tony Blair, in the same week that his Commission on Africa reported that key to any sort of African renaissance is improved governance in Africa, is less corruption in Africa, traveled to Tanzania, then one of the 5 poorest countries on the planet, together with BAE executives, and persuaded them to buy an air traffic control and radar system that they didn't need. So I think there is a profoundly corrupt relationship between the British state and its arms companies in the way that the state both acts as salesperson for the companies around the world, while there is absolutely no way that anybody who has got that far in public life does not know and understand how these arms companies operate. But they act as salesmen in chief nevertheless. And when there is any sort of attempt at scrutiny